Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata, and we just wanted to let you guys know that if you or anyone is struggling with addiction, to please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or visit us at surfside.org and all of our social media platforms. Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome back to the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata. Across the screen from Ian Koch and Ryan McGuckin. I'm saying that right?
You got it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Ryan, man, thanks for joining us. It was fun talking to you. So far this morning, I learned that we're kind of from the same town. Definitely a couple years apart, but I also want to shout out Ben for reconnecting us, and for you joining us this morning. How you making out with this whole quarantine situation?
It's an adjustment for sure, but I don't know that I've felt it as much as I've seen maybe some people in my family who are struggling to adjust. I work kind of remotely already.
Right.
And my lifestyle with my kids hasn't changed too much. We tend to just get outside for walks and play in the woods anyway, so we're still able to do that. But it's been an adjustment in all the other areas that everybody else is feeling it. I'm ready to be out from under it and get back out, travel a little bit, but
yeah, I think everyone's kind of feeling that way. So I guess if you just want to introduce yourself real quick, like say who you work for, what your position is, et cetera, any need to know information.
Yeah, real quick. So I do clinical outreach for Summit Behavioral Health Care. They have 19 programs nationwide that primarily focus on the detox residential level of care. The 3 locations I primarily focus on are in Pennsylvania. Just real quick, the things that set us apart is we tend to stay small. So our facilities are generally around 45 to 55 beds with small therapist caseloads, max size of 8. So they really see the value in clients knowing their therapist and knowing them well from the first week. It's not a place where they're just going to get safe medical detox and kind of go through the motions and then start treatment after that level of care. And they're going to do a lot of in-depth therapy and small group therapy while they're there, get to know the whole staff and have more of an intimate experience.
So are these
middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
Nice.
Are these places typically like 30-day places, or are they like longer term care too?
They say we average anywhere from like 30 to 60 days, but the sweet spot's right around like 35, 40 days.
Got it. Okay.
And that's more allocation of what insurance dictates versus what necessarily clinical would like to dictate. You guys have I was at 2 of the programs, St. Joe's Institute in PA, as well as the one that used to be Seabrook's place.
Yeah, that's Mount Laurel Recovery.
Mount Laurel, that's right. Yeah,
I've been there too.
Were you really? Did you go there when it was Seabrook's?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I think I did. Oh, I did know that. Yeah.
2012. The old leather tannery. That's a really cool building. It's like a really old
leather tannery.
What's that?
It was a leather tannery?
Yeah, so the family that owned that building across the street, there's like kind of like an abandoned building, and the family that owned it owned like a leather tannery, I think, across the street, and that was like their house or something like that. It's a beautiful part of the country out there. I was saying to Ryan, Ian, beforehand, I didn't know Pennsylvania was that big,
Pennsylvania. Oh my God, it takes 8 hours to drive across Pennsylvania.
Yeah. To me, Pennsylvania stops at Philadelphia.
You can get from this part of New Jersey, South Jersey, you can get to southern Vermont faster than you can cross Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's crazy. You can probably get to Canada.
You're pretty close. It'd be real close. So St. Joe's Institute, I was out there. That's a super cool facility. It's like in the woods. It's tucked back. It's very like what I never got to really know anybody out there like clinically, so I can't speak to that aspect. But what is cool about St. Joe's is like you feel like you're at a treatment center. which for me is something that's super important. Like if I'm referring somebody somewhere, like I'd like to know a lot about the clinical staff and what's going on there at least, but I think it's important that people know they're in rehab. I think that's super cool. You guys also have a place in Georgia. I like how I'm telling you, you know this. You know about your company.
No, you go, you do your thing.
But you also have a place in Georgia called Willing Way, I believe. And I was once in a training. And what I always stuck out about Willing Way was I was in a training with, like, I don't know if it was like the medical director or something down there, but he referenced a whole bunch of stuff out of the book Alcoholics Anonymous from Dr. Silkworth. And I was kind of blown away that, who knows if he even still works there. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. God, maybe even more than that at this point. But I was blown away that there was like an actual real doctor talking about something that made sense, you know?
Yeah, all of our programs have sort of that backbone of spirituality, spiritual progress through the recovery steps of either alcohol. I mean, they're based on the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps. So you'll feel that in most of our programs. I think due to the treatment landscape, people have opened it up to other recovery modalities. You might hear different things in different centers, but I'm not surprised that was your experience down there at all. And they still do have that long-term residential program where people are staying, from what I'm told, anywhere up to like 8 to 12 months, where they can stay on after treatment's over and go through the entire
down at Willing Way. Go
through the entire step process, and they're taking adolescents down there now too.
Got it.
So this is a cool program. I want to get down there and see it. I've only been told about it and learned about it through the literature. I'm able to read about it. So
sure.
It's not the same. You got to go experience in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So have you noticed any sort of differences in like the way you have to work now with all this stuff going on, or like trying to help people get into treatment or anything like that?
Yeah, I think from what I hear around the field, everywhere is slow. Censuses have dropped, particularly in the Northeast. Our southern programs don't seem to be hit with this as much. Of course, there's hot spots up here, so that makes sense. But I'm not your social media guy. I'm not, on the phone, email. I'm more, my value as a clinician going out to do clinical outreach is just get in front of people and cut it up about treatment. Talk about cool things that are happening in the field. Yeah. And develop a relationship with other clinicians, doctors, referral sources of any kind. I can't do that now. So when I'm calling people on the phone and emailing, I feel less effective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning and adapting and trying to put things in place so that when this is over, I can go out there and get in front of people again. But as a therapist, I also noticed the challenge, and I'm surprised. I primarily work with adolescents. I thought that they would jump at the chance to just hop on a computer and want to do virtual counseling. But I have a lot of adolescents that are like, oh, hold on, I want to wait till this is over. I don't really want to do virtual counseling right now. So
no, I think I'm not actually, like, so a couple interesting things. So I saw last night, might have been on Dateline. I follow a few sources of news pretty regularly right now. One is NBC, Dateline. I scroll through YouTube to see a couple of the sound bites from the president, not that I'm necessarily a supporter, but just to see what's going on. I'm paying a lot of attention to the opening of the country again. I'm also paying attention to, there's an email that I would suggest anybody gets. It's called Morning Brew. It's more about like the stock market and industry and business in general. What's neat about it is, like, for guys like myself that like don't know the super technical piece around business, or not necessarily business, but like stocks and that type of thing, the morning brew like kind of puts a funny twist on it, makes it very understandable. So I pay attention to that, and then I also pay attention to what's happening in the athletic and gym space, specifically with CrossFit because I'm part owner of a CrossFit gym. Yesterday, they were basically showing on, I think it was on Dateline, so I guess it was maybe even last night's Dateline, I don't know, 2 days ago Dateline, whatever. They basically showed, it was something like 10 states across the country that have been hit in terms of the unemployment rate the hardest. 25%, right, of those states have lost their jobs. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York are all in those states. And so what's really interesting is if you look at what kind of a shitstorm we might hit really, really soon, is that if 25% of the people lost their insurance, and what I know is that it seems like most of the treatment centers that I talk to, their call volume is down about 50%. Admissions are down about 50%. Census is down about 50%, kind of like across the board on average, fluctuating day to day. But, if 25% of the people lost insurance, that means we now have 25% of the people uninsured who can't access resources. Which is going to be troublesome. I mean, we know that like some of our Medicaid programs in the state still have 2-week-long waiting lists, right? So people aren't not in need all of a sudden of in treatment. And I said this last week on the podcast for the people who've been like following this regularly. I was like, where'd everybody go? Like, what happened? Did people just like get sober in their houses all of a sudden? Which doesn't necessarily make sense, right? Like, how do 50% of the people just all of a sudden sober up, and not need services? But if we know that 25% of those people, right, don't necessarily have insurance and can't access services, and then we have another 25% of the people who are probably afraid to go, that puts us at our 50%, what seems to be. So I don't know if that's kind of the things you're seeing or if you're even paying attention that closely.
Yeah.
But
I think I see all those similarities within like sort of the commercial and Medicaid addiction treatment world, right? For my part-time job, I primarily work with Perform Care and Medicaid, so they're not losing their insurance, and I don't have any adolescents with substance use issues. It's all mental health. And it tells me one thing, which is promising, that even though our adolescents tend to be tech savvy and glued to their phones, glued to their screens, they like when a therapist or somebody comes and spends time with them in person, and they're kind of missing that and want to get back to that. So more on that space, and as far as treatment goes, as far as mental health and adolescence, it almost is promising to me. It's like, all right, you miss seeing me in person. You value that. You value that connection. For the youth that we like to put in this category of, they're just like, this all day, and they don't have any substance, and they can't have a face-to-face communication. I don't necessarily know that's true. It's like their nature to crave that, to want that. So, I still like to be able to check in with them and make sure that they're okay. And some of them have scaled back the frequency of therapy. But even new referrals are like, let's wait this out. It's not serious enough yet. Let's see how it goes. And families are telling me that they're getting outside together a lot more too, which is alleviating their depression and anxiety symptoms, which is crazy to hear.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get tired of being inside because they're told they have to stay inside. So it's like, no, I want to get out. I want to be rebellious. I want to go be in the woods. Like, have at it. It's probably better than anything I could do in therapy with you. Go explore, so that's a good thing. I guess to put a positive twist on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the job I have, I'm driving out to like kind of in the middle of nowhere in Egg Harbor Township, and every day when I'm like driving back and forth, I see way more people than I would normally see, like out for walks, people riding. Like yesterday, the weather was terrible, and I saw people on Venner Ave and Margate just like riding their bikes up and down. So I think it's definitely a positive, this whole thing, that a lot of people are getting outside.
We actually went out last night. We took all the residents out to the camp, and we probably had, I don't know, 30 something residents out there, myself, a couple other staff. We had John P. Brian, he spoke.
Oh, cool.
And, and it's funny because it's like a lot of these guys are like, oh, I didn't want to come out here at first. I thought it was going to be stupid, but I'm actually really happy to be out here, like to be able to have a real meeting with people, like not on a computer. And it's like, yeah, dude, like, what did you think? Like, do you think this was going to suck? We're sitting around a campfire. And that's what I said to him. I was like, we have the opportunity right now to sit around this campfire and have like a real 12-step meeting with like a real speaker. And none of us have to look at our phones right now. I took 25 cigars out. So a bunch of guys were smoking cigars. It's like, it's crazy to me how like people forgot so quickly that they enjoyed that type of communication, some of them, and then others were on the flip side of the coin that like couldn't wait to get out there to have like something different, right? Like to have that meeting with people instead of being like on the phone. So
yeah, I think I was saying that last week or maybe the week before in the podcast. I really don't like doing these meetings online. I spoke at one this last Saturday night, and it's like weird trying to speak and not have any
real communication.
Yeah, there's no like feedback. Like
Feedback.
I had a joke in the beginning of it. I opened up with a joke, and like I couldn't hear anybody laughing or anything. So like you're not getting any like feedback from the crowd. And when I speak, I kind of like feed off of that. Like either
Sure.
People nodding their head or like mumbling in agreement or disagreement or something like that. The joke I had I thought was pretty funny. They were reading in the bylaws that if the chairperson doesn't like what you're saying, they reserve the right to mute you. And I was like, oh, well, how 21st century is this where instead of someone telling you can't talk, they just click a button and then you're muted.
I mean, but that's like Ryan, it's the same thing from being a therapist running group. Like I'm convinced, like I get it. Everybody pivoted real quick and shifted to like telecounseling and this, that, and the other thing. But like, dude, it's not the same. Like it's not, it's doable for the person who's like super, super like ready. I think it's good, but for the majority of the people who are like in that contemplative stage, like it's gotta be tough.
Yeah. And I don't know how loosely the word empath gets used. It gets used in a pretty loose way, but for someone who feels things very easily, and I think therapists who are in touch with that, they can feel the room, they can feel energy. You miss that. So if I have like someone to my right over here and I can just feel the anxiety or feel frustration, I'm going to check in with that based on like what so-and-so is saying across the room. And then there's a connection there and there's something to point at so that they can have a moment. And I think you lose that as a group facilitator, as a group therapist. I don't know how you can, unless you're watching everybody's facial expressions and try to pick up on something that dings. You can't. And so then what are you really doing? I think it becomes more of a little bit of a individual sharing. If there's 8 people in group, you're going to have 8 mini individual sessions with them to try to give them feedback, and maybe some other clients can give feedback. But I see what you're saying, and I think it's true. And I think it's true with business meetings and even this. I can pick up on you guys like shaking your head as a small group, but I can't feel the room.
Right.
And I think as human beings, I think we crave that, and that's what helps us connect in recovery, in anything we do. And if you ask me how I'm adjusting now, I think I've been tired all week. I was very lethargic. My family actually thought I had the virus because I couldn't wake up Monday and Tuesday. I might have had a little bit of a cold, but I think I'm missing that. Maybe I do have it. And I'm asymptomatic.
It's a real possibility. Yeah.
But if I'm missing anything, I think I miss that with new people. I'm missing that community type feel. I'm getting it with my family and the smallest of people that I interact with. But that's what I more worry about, is people isolating, using, decompensating as far as their mental health, losing their insurance, um, and what the fallout of that could be. And then what we're doing as a treatment industry, yeah, we pivoted for telehealth, right? How are we going to pivot when all of a sudden this lifts, or what the fallout could be, and make sure that we're providing resources, because people are going to lose their insurance. And you said Medicaid beds are closing, or long wait lists. So I've even wrote to a government official several times and haven't gotten a response back that our facilities in PA would be willing to take the New Jersey Medicaid rate. And then these beds have wait lists. We'll take them. Whatever you're going to pay, we'll take them. They can come to our centers. Nothing back. I'm trying to call around. I don't know if they're going to start lifting some of the restrictions. I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent here that could go somewhere, but just stuff that's coming to mind with what we're talking about.
So
it makes sense. But they, it's like, we're in this, everybody's so focused. We sent some flowers out to some staff as like a thank you. You're like an unforgotten soldier type of thing, to different therapists. And, and I was on a tangent 2 weeks ago with my wife, and, it's just like, it can get really frustrating. Like, and even last night, my wife, she got irritated. We're watching, I think it was Dateline, and they're talking about how they're giving, this one restaurant, and there's bunches doing it. These restaurants they're paying their employees, and they're making free meals to the frontline workers. Cool. Awesome. Problem with that is all the frontline workers still have jobs, right? What about making free meals for all the families who rely on school lunches, right? It's like, in mental health, like, we're never considered essential workers, ever. Police, firemen, doctors, nurses, fine. I'm not saying they're not essential workers, but we still have to go to work, right? We've got to deal with the bullshit while everybody else is dealing with the bullshit. Then we got to deal with the aftermath of the bullshit. So when everybody else goes on with their day, right, we're still stuck picking up the pieces. And, and not, it's just, we become like, the mental health field becomes the like lost, right? It's like the lost soldier, or the lost, the puppy that needs to be brought on. And it's like this, exactly what you're talking about, is like, everybody's so focused on, ventilators and stuff, which is good, but yet we still have these like long lines of people trying to access Medicaid treatment, right? Medicaid treatment that is covering literally 7 days and spitting people out the back door. And we've got all these other facilities. They're literally taking their last dose of meds, and then they've got to leave. They have nowhere to go, right? And yet we have facilities that are 50% occupancy. I know you used to work for RCA at one point, and I was talking to a friend up in New Hampshire. Their Danvers and their Westminster facility are booming, like filled to the brim. But they're also taking Tufts Medicaid out of Massachusetts.
Right.
So it's like, of course they're full, where Devon and Lighthouse and the others are, I don't know what their censuses are, but I know they're significantly less than full. So it's like, again, we're kind of in this situation where people are still accessing services, but we still have all these open beds. Maybe if they would get, hit with a decent Medicaid rate, we could start having people access more services.
I've said that consistently, that if people, that the powers that be would get together and realize, they upped the, let's say, New Jersey Medicaid detox rate. It was up. I could be mistaken, but I think it jumped up to, let's say, somewhere around like 405 a day. Okay, if I'm looking at the chart correctly, 405 a day can sustain a business, right? You're not going to make a ton of money, but they'll be able to operate. What's it drop down to as soon as residential hit? It drops by half, I think.
Yeah.
But then that's why I think people are taking detox only, because that's the way they can keep their lights on.
Yeah.
And residential puts them in a hole unless they have a skeleton crew that can't properly treat them. So raise both. Why do you have to toy around with just this essential? Yeah, people have to be detox. They could die if they go through alcohol or sedative withdrawal. But you're missing the point. It just keeps them stuck in the cycle, like you're saying. They go detox only, they're out. They have nowhere to go. So it's short-sighted, and I don't know who's looking at the bottom line, but it has to cost the government more money the way they're doing it than if they raise the rate.
Oh yeah, it's got it. Where you could actually get where you could actually spend some time with somebody and get them sober. And it's like I've said it. I mean, Brian's heard me say it for years. Like, we've tried to get Surfside covered as like a pilot program based on our data, based on a lot of stuff. And every time I like think I get to talking to someone who knows what they're talking about, then they want a $30,000 lobbyist fee with no guarantee. And like, the truth is, like, what our rate is, you could do those detoxes 30, 40 times, and it's just like, and people do those detoxes 30, 40 times. It's unbelievable sometimes what the system can't seem to catch up. And what's also interesting is that there were all these policies that, like, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do this. And then all of a sudden coronavirus hits, everybody has to stay home, and they're like, oh yeah, you can go do that now. Like, where before there was no reason why you couldn't do it, right? Like getting CEUs through telehealth and things like that, and certain webinars and things. Now all of a sudden it's like super easy to do it. You couldn't have a doctor or nurse or potentially registered in New Jersey working in another state. Now all of a sudden they can cross state lines without a problem. Like my license, when I moved from New Hampshire down to New Jersey, my license was not reciprocal. So I had to take 2 years. I had to go do more courses. I had to retest. But now, and I'm not saying with my license that's the case, but there are licenses where it's like, oh, we need you. We're going to waive all that. Just jump across the state, and now you can practice. And it's just interesting what, some of the red tape that is actually easily able to be dropped in a crisis situation. And once again, they can, the government consistently does not look at addiction as a crisis situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think people watch the news, right? So all you're seeing is what's going on in the hospitals today due to the virus. I don't know what would happen as far as the funds or the support on a government level if the news just showed constant information about the mental health crises or the addiction crises, the epidemic that we have going on. If that was out there all the time and all the focus was on that in every feed that we have, would there be more of a response? I have to think yes. I think we blindly kind of follow what's being fed to us. We think about what enters into our mind, into our consciousness, and then we ruminate on that. And then as it just gets pumped in everything we see, and there's a national response to that. So I think we do a good job as a treatment community to get as much information and awareness as we can out there. But sometimes it's tough because then it looks like it's in the name of big business. It can look like it's in the name of profit. And people still attach that to the treatment industry as opposed to it being altruistic, like big healthcare. But big healthcare is big business too. So I don't know why the confusion. I don't know why it gets kind of lost in that, other than that there's still this stigma against it. I still hear people use the word loser when they think of a heroin person who's addicted to heroin. And language is important. So yeah, stigma's less, but I think we'd be fools to not consider the impact that has, that limits us from making any headway in the areas that we're talking about with government and having it, trend in a more positive way that people are able to access services. I know for myself, even having commercial insurance at one time, it was a geographically bound New Jersey insurance plan. Nobody would take it. So I was either better off to have Medicaid, because at this point, with the way that insurance worked, it was basically like I was uninsured and I was dependent upon a scholarship, which thank God I got. And I actually got in front of like a doctor and a therapist that could see I was misdiagnosed, and things, you know, that were in my system as far as medication wise were hurting me. Had that not happened, I don't know where I would be today. And I had insurance, you know, I had insurance, and I couldn't find help anywhere. So it's just a lot of things to consider, and things I don't want to forget as I sit across from clients, because it's even like years later, you can start to really forget what the struggle can be when you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, and you work in this system, and you kind of like adapt to it, and, you know, want a work-life balance. It's hard to keep that right here so that you're able to be present and mindful of what a human being's actually dealing with in crisis. It's a dark place, you know, it can really be a dark place. I don't know. I'm hoping this creates a huge change, a huge awareness and shift in both how we react to it, who work in treatment, and then those that kind of make the decisions to allow us to move differently with it.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. So I got a notification. I don't know if you guys got it up here, but we got 3 minutes and 30 seconds left on the meeting time.
Oh no, man, that went quick.
Yeah, I know, right? I guess the 40 minutes went up quick. But I mean, Ryan, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you getting up kind of early for us. Ian, you too. I appreciate you waking up early. You got any last words there, Ryan? If anybody needs to get in touch with you for anything, or, you know, anything like that.
No, I'm always available. You know, I think one of the best parts about this job is I'm able to reach a lot more people, and I have learned a lot of the services that are out there. So as much as we talk about the limitations, one of the cool things about doing outreach is you find out a lot of resources that people can access. So no matter what it is, I'd love to be able to help people find someone who can help if I can't. So reach out anytime.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks,
thanks for your time, man. This will be out on the interwebs tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out for it.
Awesome.
Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
You too, man.
Sure.
As always, if you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or get us on the web at surfside.org.